This is the PUMA FOREVERRUN Nitro, and it is a stability shoe. It provides a little guidance, but if you do not need a stability shoe, if you don't think you need a little guidance, I still want you to consider this shoe. Let's get into it. So guys, it's Matt B back with another shoe review, and this time we're looking at the PUMA FOREVERRUN Nitro. You can pick up a pair for yourself for $150. And I think sometimes we don't always look at stability shoes if we don't need a stability shoe. And for me at least, I don't think I need a stability shoe, and yet I have found several stability shoes that I really enjoy running in. The FOREVERRUN Nitro is one of them. And I think ultimately it comes down to it doesn't feel like a stability shoe. I don't feel like I'm being controlled. Now perhaps that's because I really don't need it, but ultimately I think it's because the control elements are so minimal that if you don't need it, you don't really notice it. But if you do need it, it'll just give you that little bit of guidance with your foot strike and ultimately make you a more efficient runner. Now in a US men's size 9, the FOREVERRUN Nitro tips the scale at 9.6 ounces, which is about 272 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 13, it tips the scale at 12.2 ounces or 345 grams. Certainly not a skinny mini, but definitely not the most heavy shoe that I've had on this channel. And actually, it's right in line with daily trainer weights. And I don't say this about every shoe, but once I put this on my foot, it doesn't feel as heavy as the weight would indicate that it feels. You know what I'm saying? The shoe just feels good. Now we have 36 in the heel, 26 in the forefoot for a 10mm drop. It does fit true to size, just like every other Puma shoe that I've used. This is the ultra orange colorway, and on Puma's site, they say that this shoe is best for Overpronators. And I disagree, partially. And I've put quite a few miles in this shoe before bringing you my full review, and I can say that this shoe is pretty much good for anyone that's looking for a daily trainer, something you just want to put the miles in. Now obviously it is a bit heavy, probably not the shoe you're going to pick on race day, not with all those other great options out there, but for our bread and butter miles, this shoe really ticks the box. Okay, let's talk about materials, then we'll talk about ride. And of course we're going to start at the top, we're going to work our way down, and I want to show you this heel collar because it's very typically Puma. The heel cushioning doesn't come all the way to the heel collar. It's very thin at the top, and then just as we get inside, there is a bolster that goes all the way around. This is actually very satisfying to put your foot into. The step-in feel is just spot on, but we'll talk more about that when we talk about the midsole. But also with the step-in feel, we get a good feeling of security, and that is because of this bolster that comes around, well, it comes around the sides and around the back, and it just kind of holds onto your heel. It's really quite lovely. Now this is a very prominent part, but this is the heel pull, and you know what, I'm really not sure about it. I guess it's handy to have. Hey, drop in the comments if you actually use the heel pull to pull your shoes on. I don't, but you know, I guess I like the way a heel pull looks. It's kind of like a spoiler on the back of a car. That's probably not going to help you go any faster. Anyway, the heel counter is nice and rigid. The internal heel counter is nice and rigid. We also have this plastic heel clip right on the back. And it's this heel clip that kind of gives it away as a stability shoe, or a shoe that's going to provide just a little more guidance, because this heel clip, along with a rigid heel counter, is really going to lock that heel into place. It's going to make sure your heel isn't going anywhere when you're running, which I guess is what we want in any shoe. And with the FOREVERRUN Nitro, it's really going to be locked down. The upper is an engineered mesh. And saying engineered mesh really doesn't say anything. I mean, most shoes are using an engineered mesh nowadays, but the FOREVERRUN Nitro is also using an engineered mesh, and it's actually quite lovely. It looks quite dense. When you look at it on the camera, you can see these kind of, I don't know, almost like a cheetah print around the top, but it's actually quite breathable. It looks quite a tight knit, but it's really not. My foot breathes nicely when it's in the shoe, which is always a treat, especially with summer coming and you know, our feet are going to be getting a bit warm. Now Puma does use Puma tape for a little targeted reinforcement and support across the upper, and it's very difficult to see on this colorway because it's the ultra orange, as I've already said, but the tape is also ultra orange, so it's very difficult to see, but it comes all the way around. And then, yeah, I think on the medial side, it's a little bit easier to see. We've got these just strategically placed strips of Puma tape, which helps the upper stand up, and then when you lock it down, it kind of provides a little bit of support across the whole midfoot area. Speaking of support across the midfoot area, the laces, I got nothing to say about the laces. They're actually very good. They do the job that laces are supposed to do. We have a little bit of reinforcement right along the eyelet chain. There's some internal reinforcement along the toe box just to keep that toe box up off your toes, and then the tongue. Now remember, this is a stability shoe. A stability shoe that for me is working as a daily trainer, and it isn't a daily trainer type of tongue, which I find very refreshing. I think daily trainer tongues are just a little too thick. You know, I don't think it's necessary to have a super thick plush tongue, but Puma has really done something right with the tongue. And let me just hold it up. You can see it's almost like a thick race day tongue. Now there's padding all the way down the middle, which is going to just prevent a little bit of lace bite should you cinch down those laces too much. But the best thing about this tongue is that we have a double lace loop right on the top, one here, and then the tongue is gusseted on both sides. And I think that whole tongue construction, how it's tied to the rest of the shoe, contributes to the whole step-in feel being a real treat. Okay, coming on down to the midsole. Now, like all shoes, most shoes, the outsole is the star of the show. It's no different in this case. Puma is using their nitro foam. It's a supercritical nitrogen infused foam. Here's the thing that makes it more of a stability shoe, a shoe that's going to give a little more guidance, and that is there are actually two densities of foam. The bit that you can see around this outside, this is just a little firmer. And then on the inside, let me just give you a high-tech demonstration. If this is the outside of the shoe, so we've got the rim of the outsole, there's another softer bit of nitro foam that just runs the length of the shoe, but is surrounded by the denser nitro foam. And what this is going to do, when you put your foot into this shoe, you're going to put your foot in, you're going to be touching that super soft nitro foam that's going to feel really good underfoot. It's responsive, it's soft, it's everything you want in a midsole. And then around the outside, we've kind of got, well, it's a whole rim around the outside, but it kind of provides rails to the midsole. And these rails are what are going to give you a little more guidance with each step. And I think it works well. I think for people that need just a little bit of guidance in their shoe, I think these foam-based stability shoes are really the way to go. And if I was a shoe manufacturer, that would be the way that I would go, because these shoes appeal to so much wider of an audience than just someone that's looking for a stability shoe. Oh, I didn't mention it, but Puma is calling all of their stability elements in this shoe their run guide system, which is a pretty appropriate name considering what it actually does. Guides your run. Let's come down to the outsole. And on the outsole, we have Puma Grip. Puma Grip, I don't know, it seems like everyone says the same thing, but Puma Grip is spot on. You really can't believe the hype about Puma Grip. You are not going to be slipping around when you have a shoe with Puma Grip on your foot. Now this Puma Grip is supposed to provide all surface traction. Can't really say that. I haven't taken this shoe on the trails, but I have taken it on some shell trails. So I guess they're trails, but it's more like just a path that's been laid down with shell. And then of course, 99% of the miles that I've put on this shoe have been on the road, both wet and dry, and haven't had any issue with slipping around. And you can see this cool little line of teardrops just coming up from the heel all the way up to the forefoot. And if you look closely, you can see there is a different type of foam on the inside. That's a little sneak peek into that soft nitro foam that is just cushioning your foot as you run. That's the good stuff right inside. Let's talk about ride, because look, if you're going to be buying this shoe, you're probably going to be putting a lot of volume in it. I would say that's what this shoe is made for. And right out of the box, I took it out on a 20-mile run. Now, some of you may be thinking, Matt, that's a bit crazy to be taking a shoe out on a 20-mile run when you just take it out of the tin. And if I had a bad experience, I would certainly agree with you. But because I had a good experience, I think my decision was well thought out and spot on. And I actually had no problems throughout the whole 20 miles. This shoe was brand new. I didn't even wear it around the house before I took it out for those 20 miles. And I've got to say, it felt good. It felt supportive. It gave me everything I was looking in a shoe that I'm going out for a training run for that distance. Just like a daily trainer, I've already said it, you're not going to be choosing this shoe to go racing. Puma has a lot of other great options that you can choose over this. And by the same token, I probably wouldn't use this shoe for any of my workouts. It's just a little heavy. Although of course, in my testing, I have picked up the pace for a little bit. I've certainly done strides and I've done short intervals at tempo pace just to see how it feels. It feels good. It feels exactly like running at tempo pace in a daily trainer. But ultimately, the whole ride experience comes down to the inner nitro foam. That bit of foam that you can only see through these little windows on the bottom. When you put your foot in, now we're going back to step-in feel. I think this is the third time I've mentioned step-in feel. The shoe just feels good. Remember, we talked about step-in feel being a product of this heel bolster that kind of locks down your heel. The tongue is super nice, but then the star of the show is definitely this nitrogen-infused, softer midsole foam, and it just feels good under your foot. It just makes you want to go out and run for hours. Maybe not want to run for hours, but if you had to go out and run for hours, this is going to be a good shoe for you. Now, I am very lucky. I do get to test a lot of running shoes, and I can say that because a daily trainer is the shoe that I use the most, I'm going to be putting a lot of miles in the Forever Run Nitro, even once my testing wraps up. I think that's probably the highest praise I could give it. It's just a really solid shoe. And for $150, I think the price is spot on. Now, $150 is certainly expensive, I get it, but it's not overly expensive. And based on my experience, it really does represent incredible value. $150 is money well spent for the Forever Run Nitro. Alright guys, if you have made it to this point in the video, first of all, thank you very much. You probably know what's coming. But for today's emoji, I want you to drop the orange emoji into the comments, just so I know that you've made it all the way to the end of the video. If you don't know why I have chosen the orange emoji today, why don't you start at the beginning and then rewatch the video. Pretty sure you'll pick it up. Guys, my name's Matt. This is my review of Puma's Forever Run Nitro. Be kind, be happy, run well. I'll see you in a couple of days.